For thousands of years, humanity has stared at these structures and asked the same question. How? How did a civilization with no cranes, no steel, no machinery, raise 2.3 million stone blocks, some weighing 80 tons, into a perfect geometric form that has survived 4,500 years? The answer has fueled conspiracies, launched religions, and rewritten history, and the truth is more extraordinary than any of them. Stand at the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza and let the scale sink in. It stands 146 meters tall. For nearly 4,000 years, it was the tallest structure on Earth. It covers 53,000 square meters of desert. It is aligned to true north with a precision that modern architects struggle to replicate, and it was built by human hands, but not the hands most people imagine. For decades, Hollywood told us one story: ancient aliens, mysterious technology, lost civilizations with powers beyond our understanding. It made for great cinema, but the real story, the one buried beneath the sand, written in ink on ancient papyrus, carved into workers' tombs, is something far more human, far more dramatic, and in many ways, far more impressive. This is the truth about who built the pyramids. For centuries, the dominant theory was simple and brutal. Slaves, thousands of enslaved people, whipped across burning sand, dragged into submission by the iron will of a god king. This image entered Western consciousness through the Bible, through Hollywood, through Charlton Heston and Cecil B. DeMille. It became the story the world believed. There was just one problem: it was almost entirely wrong. The first serious cracks in the slave theory appeared in 1990, when a tourist's horse stumbled near the Giza plateau and broke through a patch of ground, revealing a hidden complex beneath the desert. Archaeologists moved in. What they uncovered would change everything. It was a city, a real, functioning, ancient city, built not for pharaohs, but for workers. Imagine walking through this place in 2500 BC. The air smells of baking bread and sawdust. The sound of stone against stone echoes across the plateau. Narrow streets run between rows of long barracks, each one housing dozens of men. There are bakeries here, large enough to feed thousands, breweries producing enormous quantities of beer, butcheries processing cattle and sheep on an industrial scale. This was not a slave camp. This was a workers' city, organized, supplied, and administered by the Egyptian state with extraordinary precision. Archaeologist Mark Lehner, who led much of the excavation, estimated the workforce at any given time was between 20,000 and 30,000 people. But they were not enslaved. They were paid. They received wages in the form of food, beer, clothing, and medical care. The bones found in the workers' cemetery tell their own story: signs of healed fractures, evidence of surgical care, bodies given proper burial rites. These were people the state valued. They were organized into teams with names: friends of Khufu, drunkards of Menkaura, crews who competed against each other, who left graffiti on the stones they placed, graffiti that archaeologists can still read today. These men had pride in their work. So who were they exactly? The workforce was made up of two groups. The first was a permanent core, skilled craftsmen, engineers, architects, and administrators who lived at Giza year-round. These were Egypt's best, stonemasons who had trained their entire lives, surveyors who could calculate angles with terrifying accuracy, scribes who tracked every block, every supply shipment, every worker's daily output. The second group was rotating labor, farmers from across Egypt who came to the plateau during the Nile's annual flood season, when their fields were underwater and agriculture stopped. Rather than sit idle, they were called to serve the pharaoh. But this was not forced labor in the way we understand it. In ancient Egyptian society, working on the pyramid was a form of tax, but also a profound religious duty. The pharaoh was not just a king, he was a god. Building his eternal home was an act of devotion, a guarantee of divine favor, a chance to participate in something eternal. The men who came to Giza believed they were building heaven on earth. In 2013, archaeologists discovered something that made this story undeniably real. In a cave near the Red Sea port of Wadi el-Jarf, they found a papyrus diary, the oldest papyrus ever discovered. It was written by a man named Mera, an overseer who supervised a team of 40 elite workers during the construction of the Great Pyramid. Mera wrote about his daily life in remarkable detail: the limestone deliveries, the boat journeys along the Nile, the rations his team received, the progress of the work. He wrote like a man who was proud of what he was doing. But pride alone does not explain how they did it. The engineering challenge was almost incomprehensible. The base of the Great Pyramid is level to within 2.1 centimeters across its entire 230-meter footprint. For reference, that is more precise than most modern construction projects. Achieving that without laser levels, without GPS, without any modern surveying technology, required a mastery of geometry and practical engineering that still commands respect. The stones themselves, limestone from the Giza plateau, granite transported from Aswan, 800 kilometers to the south, were cut with copper tools and wooden wedges. Quarry workers found natural fracture lines in the rock, exploited them with precision. Ramps were built, the exact design still debated, allowing teams of men to haul sledges loaded with stone across wetted sand, reducing friction in ways that modern experiments have confirmed actually work.
Water, sand, wood, rope, copper, and tens of thousands of extraordinarily organized human beings. No aliens, no lost technology, no mystery power source, just the relentless collective genius of a civilization at the height of its power, deciding that it would build something that would last forever, and it did.
The Great Pyramid has outlasted every empire that came after it. It watched Alexander the Great cross the desert. It watched Rome rise and fall. It stood while Constantinople burned, while medieval Europe built its cathedrals, while empires in the Americas rose and collapsed and were forgotten. It is still standing while we sit here, thousands of years later, still asking questions about it. But now we know the answer to the most important one. It was not built by slaves driven by fear. It was built by human beings driven by belief, by craftsmen who signed their work, by farmers who crossed Egypt to be part of something larger than themselves, by engineers who solved problems no one had ever faced before, by a civilization that looked at the horizon and decided it would leave something there that time could not erase. They succeeded. The next time you look at an image of Giza, those three perfect triangles rising above the desert at golden hour, remember that somewhere in that stone is the fingerprint of a man named Mera, who woke up one morning 4,500 years ago, picked up his papyrus, and wrote about a day at work, a day that changed the world forever. If this story moved you, subscribe, because we are just getting started.